Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to our honourable colleague from Source Moose Mountain for his kind words. I don't know, I immediately felt the weight of the world on my shoulders when he said that he was looking forward to this speech. Madam Speaker, you know, we are here to, I'm just going to be very plain and blunt, pardon for a change, Madam Speaker.
Can I interrupt?
You're going to ruin my video now.
No, I think the honourable member has some sort of, yeah, the phone made a noise and it's just too close to the mics. Just, okay, thank you.
I guess I ruined my own video, Madam Speaker. Well, we'll just edit that out, right? Madam Speaker, we're here today to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. In our communities, the honourable member from Winnipeg North actually mentioned me in his speech a little bit earlier, and couldn't believe that the member from Caribou Prince George actually said these words and exaggerated the state of. Madam Speaker, I promise you I did not exaggerate the state of what's going on, the crime rate in my riding of Caribou Prince George. As a matter of fact, we've had a community declare a state of emergency because of 5 or 6 prolific offenders that commit over 90% of the crime, Madam Speaker. I did say that. And I also did say that our communities are like war zones because, Madam Speaker, of their failed drug policies. I asked the 12 people that are watching online or through CPAC today, this debate, do our communities look the same as they did 10 years ago? They don't. We can just walk 500 yards from this building and we have people passed out or sleeping on the streets, and you don't know whether they're alive or not. We become completely desensitized to the fact that we have an opioid crisis and we are having tens of thousands of Canadians that have lost their lives since 2016, Madam Speaker. And it's because of their failed policies. It's unbelievable, Madam Speaker. And we get the Liberals that stand up from urban centres that say, Canadians have never had it so good. We get the member from Winnipeg North saying, how dare he use these stats from his community. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, we had another fire in Prince George just on the weekend. I received a text message from a constituent saying, we're fed up. And if politicians are not going to do something, it's time for citizens to take the matters into their own hands. Madam Speaker, premiers, mayors, attorney generals, and police associations from across our country are calling for bail reform. Yet the Liberals on the other side stand up and say, oh, it's just the Conservatives wanting to fundraise off of this, Madam Speaker. And when my colleagues stand and cite horrific events that took place because of the Liberals' failed crime policies, where violent offenders have been released only to re-offend, likely the very same day, the horrific crimes, they say that we're sensationalizing it. It's unbelievable, Madam Speaker. It really is. You know, Madam Speaker, I like to bring everything back to home, and so I'm going to talk about my riding of Caribou Prince George a little bit more, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to bring Mr. Hubbard's name into this House once again. Bob Hubbard, a senior in my riding, returned home last fall to his house, only to find it being ransacked and robbed, Madam Speaker. Now, Mr. Hubbard tried to stop the perpetrators of this crime, and what they did was they stole his car and ran him over. They drug him down the driveway and left him for dead. Now, Speaker, those criminals were picked up within hours, and they were released within hours, Madam Speaker. They left a man for dead, and they were released within hours. Madam Speaker, we've had a number of fires in our town of Prince George, all done by criminals. And I'm going to read a headline. Under siege, owners of Prince George Brewery lost to arson urge government to act on street disorder. Now, the perpetrator of this fire, I happen to know. I grew up with him. He is a repeat offender with a long rap sheet, 19 court appearances since 2021, 27 criminal charges since 2006, including assaults, death threats, breach of probation, and even a sexual assault. But, Madam Speaker, he is committing these heinous crimes in our community. Now, he destroyed a long-standing brewery in our community. And the owners said this. Daryl Liskey and Cindy Zerkowski said this one act destroyed our business, displaced 50 employees, and disrupted the lives of hundreds more families, partners, community members, and neighbors. We are under siege. We built it downtown because we believed in this city. It was lost in a reckless, deliberate act of arson. Give us back our streets. Give us back our sense of safety. Without it, businesses like ours cannot survive, let alone rebuild. Madam Speaker, so the member from Winnipeg North is likely going to stand up and again in his loud voice and complain about me stating these events into the record or reading these events into the records. And he's going to say that I'm sensationalizing it. So and he's heckling me right now, and he's laughing, and he's laughing at the suffering of those in my riding. It is gross. Yet he continues to do this time and time again. And I just say, Madam Speaker, shame.
That's right.
Shame on him. Yep. Madam Speaker, 53,000 Canadians have lost their lives to the overdose crisis since 2016. And I'll mention Brianna McDonald, the 13-year-old who last year lost her life in a homeless encampment. Yeah. She turned 13 on July 15th, my son's birthday, Madam Speaker, and she was found deceased on my daughter's birthday, August 23rd. I'll mention Tyler Dunlap, 17 years of age. He was in the hospital the night before getting his stomach pumped out from an overdose, Madam Speaker. His parents, like Brianna's, pleaded with the doctors and the system to get their children help, to keep them in the hospitals. Madam Speaker, I'm not sensationalizing this. These are real families that have lost loved ones because of their failed drug policies.
That's right. It's proven.
That's shameful, Madam Speaker. It's maddening. What about the first responders that every day have to respond to another overdose, bring somebody back from death, only to have that person back on the street and overdosing later the same day? What about my brother, Madam Speaker, who's been on the street gripped in overdose or addiction forever? A criminal, an addict. He's not a toss away, nor are any of the Canadians and those that are living on the streets that are trying to make just trying to exist, trying to get their next fix. Madam Speaker, the reality is C-75 codified the principles of release to the point where 3 grounds to deny bail. Primary grounds are ensuring the accused appears in court. The reality is that people with extensive previous accounts failed to appear convictions are not being detained, Madam Speaker. I'll wrap up. There are good points in C-75, Madam Speaker, but time and time again, we're seeing that the most violent offenders are released only to reoffend, cause death, assault. Madam Speaker, no one stands for the victims. Yet the criminals have more rights than these victims. Where's the voices of the victims, Madam Speaker? And that's what our Conservative team is doing today, is standing up for the rights of the criminals or the victims of crime, Madam Speaker, and we will continue to do that.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes, first of all, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, no one laughs or mocks in any way, I believe, inside this chamber, individual victims or individuals that the member was expressing. I do call into question members' statements that this particular member has made. So, for example, when he says that our communities are like war zones, I believe most Canadians would disagree. That is extreme. When you get the MP from Oxford saying, we're now living in a war zone in Canada, I disagree, Madam Speaker. The member himself said, 5, and I quote, communities that state of emergency declared because 5 or 6 prolific people. I would challenge the member on that particular issue. I believe that the Conservatives ratchet up this issue in order to justify a motivation that puts their party ahead of Canadians. When are they going to start putting Canadians and Canadian interests ahead of their own political interests, Madam Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Caribou Prince George.
Well, Madam Speaker, actually, as a matter of fact, when the town of Williams Lake declared or wanted to declare a state of emergency,
Order.
Madam Speaker, when the town of Williams Lake, the mayor and council wanted to declare a state of emergency, it was actually over one prolific offender. One prolific offender, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 prolific offenders, when they're in jail, crime rate goes down. When they're out of jail, crime rate goes up, Madam Speaker. That's the reality. He doesn't want to believe it. He doesn't want to agree to it, Madam Speaker, but that's his job, to be a good soldier, a lapdog, to stand there and say all the talking points to the government, Madam Speaker. I just say shame on him, Madam Speaker. He's made a good career of it, but shame on him. I quoted the owners of the Crossroads Brewery where they said, we are under siege, Madam Speaker. It's not my words. It's the words of my constituents. If he doesn't believe it, Madam Speaker, he can be woefully blind and go merrily along his way, but it's just wrong, Madam Speaker. It's ignorance.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Gaspésie. Gaspésie, la Madeleine de Gauche. I'd like to thank my colleague for his presentation. The issues that he raises and the motion his party has presented today have to do with very fundamental elements that are part of the Charter. The right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty by the courts. The right to freedom. And so in that context, since we're talking about these fundamental issues where we live in a country that observes the rule of law, but we don't want to become a police state either, where we imprison people without sufficient evidence. So why is my colleague in so much hurry to move forward with the study of this bill?
Madam Speaker, total violent crime in our country is up 55%. Homicides are up 30%. Sexual assaults up 76%. Total firearms crime, 130%. Extortion overall for our country is 330%. In my province of British Columbia, it's up 481%. Overdose in my province is the leading cause of death for youth and young adults aged 10 to 18. Madam Speaker, I'll say that again because it bears repeating. Overdose is the leading cause of death for youth in the province of British Columbia. That's under this Liberal government. That's their record. That's their legacy.
Disgusting.
And it is disgusting, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Skeena Valley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I've been listening to this debate for the last few days now. And I do hear the other side of the House talking about this when Conservatives talk about the rapes of children and toddlers and murders and assault. And women not wanting to walk the streets tonight, including members of the Liberal government. And the response is always the same. It's always sensationalizing or dramatizing the incidents. Well, I guarantee you, if the parent of that toddler came in right now, they would not think that was sensationalizing. They're left with trauma. So to my colleague, when did all this start? Because I was an MLA for 7 years, and we were complaining that back in the BC legislature.
The honourable member, a very, very brief answer. The honourable member from Caribou Prince.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a tremendous amount of respect for my honourable colleague. Madam Speaker, I ask, and I'll finish the way I started, Madam Speaker. A simple question. Do our communities and does our country look the same as it did in 2015 when this government took power? And the answer is no.